And we're back again with another episode of the Seth Solo Side Quest. This is episode 14. I'm Seth from the Lonely Stoner podcast, and as usual, we're not really going to talk about a wide range of topics today. We're going to talk about some boxing, a couple events coming up, a couple big fights coming up, a couple big fights that have just happened that we're going to talk about. I guess we'll kick it off with Naoya Inoue, the Japanese super bantamweight fighter, currently unbeaten, 29 wins, 26 knockouts. A fighter who's gone up multiple weight classes, been world champion in every weight class he's been at. He's currently at super bantamweight, and he's got 5 title defenses under his belt at this point. So at this point, he's really kind of ran through the division. Everyone's saying the next step for him is to move up. And we've even got a comment from Eddie Hearn saying that Naoya Inoue shouldn't be in the pound for pound rankings, which is just insane. I think Eddie Hearn's definitely just saying that to get a reaction from the internet boxing community, because anyone with half a brain cell understands why this guy not only is in the pound for pound list but should be right near the top. Fight after fight, he's active as well. Last year only fought twice. He's not super active. He fights about 2 times a year, to be fair, so he's not super active, but when he's fighting these guys, he's putting them to sleep, which I think has really been his claim to fame as a fighter in the lower weight classes. Is typically these sorts of fighters don't get the popularity because they're kind of seen as small, and obviously he's a super bantamweight, fought at bantamweight and super flyweight. Of course he's a small guy, but what comes along with that is they don't really pack a punch. Dude's got an 89% knockout ratio. This guy is like a mini Deontay Wilder, but who can actually box as well. Deontay Wilder was relying solely on a 1-2, really a 2, and maybe a big hook, big uppercut. But if you could take those shots, you would really have a chance. We saw Tyson Fury beat him. We've seen numerous guys beat Deontay Wilder at this point. We even saw Luis Ortiz give him a run for his money before he got knocked out. But a number of guys have given Deontay Wilder a run for his money. Even though there's been moments where fights have been competitive with Naoya Inoue, the Lewis Neri fight comes to mind. But even I'm looking at some of his guys on his resume: Nonito Donaire, Stephen Fulton, guys like this. These are guys that at this level or in these weight classes are guys who are right at the top of the division. Stephen Fulton, an undefeated fighter with a lot of hype around him, all things considered, goes to Japan and gets knocked out. Gets knocked out by Naoya Inoue. What this guy does, he knocks people out, he puts them to sleep, he sends them to the shadow realm. But I guess what we want to talk about now is, where does this guy go from here? Where does Naoya Inoue go from here? Does he move up a division? I think he probably has to. I don't know. Let's look at who's the boxing featherweight champions at the moment. But that's probably the only real option Naoya Inoue's got, because at this point, super bantamweight, you've made 5 defenses. What's next for you? Really and truly, I mean, what are you going to do? Keep defending your title? You could, and keep winning and keep getting some nice paydays. But a guy like him, he's not super young anymore. How old is he? I think Naoya Inoue's 31. So to be fair, he's 31. He's still got some. He's still got some years behind him, right? But let's see who's featherweight champions in boxing at the moment. Let's have a look. WBC. Who's WBC featherweight champion? Because I think Gervonta Davis is a bit further up, isn't he? Yeah. Brandon Figueroa. It's a weird name. Brandon Figueroa. I mean, it's not a huge fight because I don't know who this guy is. Never heard of him before. But if Naoya Inoue was to go up again, fight this guy, Brandon Figueroa, weird ass name, in the featherweight division, probably would beat him. I'm saying that this guy's 25-1 with 19 knockouts. That's a pretty legit record, but Naoya Inoue's the truth, bro. He's knocking guys out and sending them to the shadow realm. So let's see what's next for Naoya Inoue. I'd like to see him keep moving up. I think everyone says, the big money fights for Naoya Inoue is like Gervonta Davis, but Gervonta Davis is at like lightweight. Obviously, Gervonta Davis did start his career at the lower weight classes. I want to say started his career at super bantamweight or featherweight even, but let's have a look. Let's look at his record. Oh, they can't show me at BoxRec. Yeah, BoxRec, you're bugging. Got me fucked up. But yeah, I remember Gervonta Davis. He started his career, in the lower weight classes at like, I want to say he started at featherweight. Maybe he started at featherweight, but let's see, career beginnings. Where did he fight? Featherweight. Yeah, he was at featherweight. He won the world title at featherweight. He's now fighting at lightweight. I guess for enough money. I mean, Tank's gotten a lot bigger since these days. And this was 2017, 2018, 2019 times. This was over 5 years ago that Gervonta Davis was fighting at featherweight. Can he still make that weight? He's a lot bigger as a man. He's a lot bigger since those days. But the money talks. We all know it. Floyd knows it. Gervonta Davis knows it. Naoya Inoue probably knows it too. The money talks. But will the money be enough? Because Gervonta Davis could get an equally big payday, probably a bigger payday, if he was to rematch, say, a Ryan Garcia or one of the other top names at lightweight. If he was to fight a Lomachenko, for example, he could get a huge payday doing that, and he could do that at his current weight class instead of maybe not getting as big of a payday to fight Inoue and have to cut additional weight. It's a tough sell for a guy like Gervonta Davis, especially when really the only sell is what could you say, like legacy, because Naoya Inoue's got no championships at featherweight. Maybe if Naoya Inoue wins some championships at featherweight, then maybe a case could be made, but until then, there's not really any huge fights on the horizon for Naoya Inoue, particularly at super bantamweight, because he's really cleaned out the division. Maybe at featherweight, I need to look more at the featherweight rankings, which I'll do maybe another time or whenever. Or else, maybe get Lomachenko back down to featherweight, Gervonta Davis back down to featherweight. Those are the only real options. I could see if Naoya Inoue wins one world championship at featherweight, maybe he wins two. I could see Lomachenko wanting that fight, because Lomachenko's not the type to turn down a world title fight. Now that would be a serious fight that I'd want to watch. I'm not sure how well it would do in box office, because you've got two guys that aren't American, Lomachenko, and a guy who's had a couple losses at this point, but still not past his prime at all. Still a guy who will go out there and give you 12 rounds and put on an amazing fight and fight in, his amazing style that Lomachenko is known for. And Naoya Inoue, who hopefully by this point won't be too old and still knocking guys out, could be a really big event. I think they probably do it in Japan, because Naoya Inoue has a lot of his fights in Japan, doesn't really fight too often in America. It makes sense. He's probably a bigger star in Japan, sorry. So yeah, Inoue is in an interesting spot. I mean, he's in a better spot than most boxers. If you can be an undefeated guy with an 89% knockout ratio, you're doing something right. You're doing something right. But next we've got David Benavidez fighting against David Morrell. Now this is a fight that I'm pretty excited for, to be fair. It's at the T-Mobile Arena in Las Vegas. It's on the 1st of February. You got two undefeated guys here. David Benavidez, in his second fight at light heavyweight, 29 wins, 24 knockouts. Another huge puncher. Historically he's been a super middleweight, but now is the current WBC interim world light heavyweight champion. A fighter with, what can I say, knockout power, sending guys to the shadow realm just as much as Naoya Inoue. Actually, it's just quite funny that both these guys are in the same video, but yeah, David Benavidez, 82% knockout ratio. Like I said, 29 wins, 24 knockouts, 0 losses, undefeated guy. A guy who's held world championships at super middleweight. And I remember he was close to a Canelo fight, was calling out Canelo. I would have loved to see that fight, because when you look at David Benavidez, you see his style, you're like, this is the sort of style that definitely gives a guy like Canelo problems, and he's still young. He's only 28 with 29 fights, so he's racking up that experience, not too dissimilar to how Canelo was racking up that experience when he was young. Of course, David Benavidez is 6'2". He's a lot bigger than Canelo, and we've seen Canelo have problems with guys that even necessarily don't necessarily have loads in common with David Benavidez. I think of a guy like Kovalev or Bivol. Guys that are bigger than Canelo, are probably a bit stronger than him and can take his punches. I know the Kovalev fight in the end ended up with Canelo beating Kovalev by knocking him out, but if we rewatch that fight, for large parts of that fight, Canelo was losing that fight. You know, Canelo was definitely losing that fight, and Kovalev was, for the most part, sort of outboxing him or being able to win those rounds, which is what a crafty veteran like Kovalev does. You know, he doesn't overexert himself. He does enough to win those rounds, and you're on to the next. Wins around, onto the next, onto the next. And then before you know it, you're either in the 9th, 10th, or 11th round and you're gassed and he finishes you, or he just cruises his way to a decision. And Kovalev done that many times throughout his fight and throughout his career, rather. And would number of times get huge, late knockouts. He was a big puncher too. Obviously, by the time he fought Canelo, was way past his prime. Similarly to Bivol, bigger than Canelo, able to take his shots, walk him down, put the pressure on him, throw punches in bunches as well. Canelo's a great defensive boxer, but any boxer is going to find it hard to dodge 4, 5, 6 punches coming at them at once. A boxer can dodge 1 or 2, even 3 punches. Canelo can do that. But if you're throwing consistently over a 12-round fight, 4, 5, 6, even 7 punch combos, you're going to start landing. Even if the first 2 punches miss, but you're just dedicated to throwing these combos, you're going to start landing on these guys. And that's what Bivol done. That's what Kovalev done before he got knocked out. That's what Bivol done against Canelo and had a lot of success. David Benavidez is capable of doing that. Now, can he take Canelo's shots? That is the real question. That is the question we don't know. Benavidez has faced some big punchers. Demetrius Andrade, big puncher. Anthony Durrell, decent puncher. And then some nobodies, to be fair. But big win over Caleb Plant. Caleb Plant, if you know boxing, you know Caleb Plant is a seriously good boxer. There's a lot of people that I think, because Caleb Plant, he kind of went out sad in the Canelo fight. They're kind of sleeping on him. But Caleb Plant is a seriously good boxer. And David Benavidez beat Caleb Plant. He beat him, and he's also beat David Lemieux. Decent win, I guess. And now he's fighting David Morrell at light heavyweight. I'll be honest, I have never heard of David Morrell before. He's an 11-0 boxer, undefeated. He, as an amateur, he was the 2017 Cuban national champion. So he's got a bit of amateur pedigree there, but I look at his record and he's faced nobodies. But who's to say, he's a guy who I've never heard of, so maybe he can get an upset here against David Benavidez. It's possible, it's boxing, anything can happen. But we'll have to see what happens there. But I'm picking David Benavidez for that fight. I think that's the logical pick. David Benavidez, he's got the CV behind him. To be fair, Morrell's also unbeaten. They're both unbeaten guys. But it should be a pretty interesting fight, to the least. I imagine David Benavidez, WBC Interim World Light Heavyweight Championship will be on the line. And I'd probably pick him to successfully defend that too. So yeah, that's it from me. I'm Seth. It's been another episode of Seth Solo Side Quest. It's been episode 14, is it? Damn, I'm really pumping these out, but shit, bro. Gets like that. Alright, I'm out. Peace.